Recent developments in Israel regarding potential annexation of the West Bank and possible takeover of Gaza are sparking international outcry. People are screaming about legitimacy, about international law, about occupation. But here's what nobody wants to do. Stop pretending this is happening in a vacuum. If we are going to talk about annexation, we need to talk about how these territories became occupied in the first place. We need to talk about what occupation actually means legally, and we need to talk about what Israel has offered and what has been rejected. Because context isn't optional, it's essential. Shalom, I'm Igal, and this is Middle East in less than 5 minutes. What are we actually talking about? Let's start with geography. The West Bank, or as it's been known for thousands of years, Judea and Samaria, and the Gaza Strip. These aren't just random pieces of land. They are not some colonial outposts Israel grabbed for expansion. The history here matters. In 1948, Israel declared independence. The very next day, 5 Arab armies invaded. Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq. All of them. The goal was explicit: eliminate the Jewish state. Israel survived, barely, but in the process Jordan occupied Judea and Samaria, what they renamed the West Bank. Egypt occupied the Gaza Strip. For 19 years, from 1948 to 1967, Jordan and Egypt controlled these territories, and during those 19 years, nobody called it occupation. Nobody demanded they give the land to Palestinians. Nobody held emergency UN sessions. Why? Because the outrage isn't about occupation. It's about who's doing the occupying. How Israel ended up controlling these territories. Fast forward to 1967. Egypt blockades Israeli shipping. Syria shells Israeli villages from the Golan Heights. Arab leaders openly promise to finish what they started in 1948. Israel strikes first. In 6 days, the war is over. Egypt loses the Sinai and Gaza. Jordan loses the West Bank. Syria loses the Golan. Israel didn't take these territories to expand. Israel took them to survive. These weren't abstract strategic assets. They were the launchpads for terrorism and military attacks. From 1948 to 1967, Jordanian-controlled territory was used for cross-border raids. Fedayeen terrorists infiltrated from Egyptian-controlled Gaza. Israelis were murdered in their homes, on buses, and in fields. So when Israel took control in 1967, it wasn't conquest for the sake of empire. It was security. It was survival. The legal status. Not as clear as they claim. Now let's talk about the word everyone loves to throw around. Illegal. Illegally occupied territories. Illegal settlements. Violation of international law. Here's the problem. The legal status isn't nearly as settled as activists claim. International law is complicated. The Fourth Geneva Convention prohibits an occupying power from transferring its own population into occupied territory. That's the argument against Israeli settlements. But here's what that requires. Israel would have to be occupying someone else's sovereign territory. Whose sovereignty? Jordan's? Jordan renounced all claims to the West Bank in 1988. Egypt never claimed sovereignty over Gaza, just administered it. The Palestinian Authority? They've never had sovereignty. They've never been a Palestinian state with recognized borders. So what exactly is Israel occupying? Territory that was part of the British Mandate, then illegally occupied by Jordan and Egypt, then captured by Israel in a defensive war. Legal scholars argue both sides. Some say it's occupation, some say it's disputed territory, some say Israel has a legitimate claim based on the League of Nations mandate, the Remo resolution, and the principle of defensive conquest. The point isn't that Israel is automatically in the right. The point is that the law isn't black and white. Calling it illegally occupied is a political statement, not a legal fact. Land for peace. The offers nobody talks about. Here's what really matters. Israel has offered to give up land for peace, multiple times. Camp David, 2000. Israel offers Yasser Arafat approximately 95% of the West Bank, all of Gaza, and East Jerusalem as a capital. Arafat walks away. No counteroffer, just walks away. 2008. Olmert offers Mahmoud Abbas even more. Nearly all of the West Bank, land swaps for the rest, shared Jerusalem. Abbas says he needs time to think, then refuses to even respond. 2005. Israel unilaterally withdraws from Gaza. Every soldier, every settler, every inch of territory gives Palestinians full control. What happens? Hamas takes over, turns it into a terror base, launches thousands of rockets at Israeli cities. That's not theory, that's what actually happened. So when people say Israel refuses to make peace, they're lying. Israel has offered land for peace repeatedly, and every time Palestinian leadership has chosen terrorism over statehood. Why the Goliath versus David narrative doesn't change the facts? After the Six-Day War, the narrative flipped. Before 1967, Israel was the underdog, tiny Jewish state surrounded by hostile Arab armies. The world loved that story. After 1967, Israel became the occupier, the powerful military, the one with territory, and Palestinians became the new underdog. But switching the labels doesn't change the facts. Israel offered peace, Palestinians rejected it. Israel withdrew from Gaza, Palestinians turned it into a launching pad for terror. Israel has absorbed millions of refugees from Arab countries, Holocaust survivors, Ethiopian Jews, Russian Jews, built a country, created an economy. Palestinians have been kept in refugee camps by their own leaders and Arab host countries for 76 years, fed grievance instead of opportunity, taught to hate instead of build. That's not because Israel is Goliath and Palestinians are David. It's because one side chose development and the other chose destruction. Why annexation talk is happening now? So why is Israel talking about annexation now? Why Gaza? Why the West Bank? Because the status quo isn't working. Decades of offers rejected. Decades of terrorism rewarded. Decades of international pressure to make concessions that only produce more violence. October 7, 2023 proved that withdrawing from territory and hoping for peace doesn't work. Israel left Gaza in 2005. By 2023, Hamas has built an entire terror infrastructure, thousands of rockets, tunnels under every neighborhood, and they used it to massacre 1,200 Israelis. So what's the alternative? Keep hoping the next offer will be different? Keep pretending that if Israel just gives up a little more, peace will magically appear? Israel tried it. It failed. What annexation actually means. If Israel annexes parts of the West Bank, what does it mean? It means applying Israeli law to territory Israel controls. It means acknowledging reality instead of pretending there's a peace partner that doesn't exist. It doesn't mean expelling Palestinians. Israeli Arabs are citizens with full rights. They vote, serve in government, sit in Supreme Court. Annexation could mean extending those same rights to Palestinians in annexed areas. But that's not the story you will hear. You will hear apartheid. You will hear ethnic cleansing. You will hear that Israel is destroying the two-state solution. Here's the truth. The two-state solution has been dead for years. It died every time Palestinians rejected an offer. It died when Gaza became a terror state. It died when Palestinian leaders paid salaries to terrorists and named streets after child murderers. Pretending it's still viable isn't hope, it's delusion. The double standard. And let's talk about the international outcry, because it's worth noticing who's get outraged about what. Turkey occupies northern Cyprus since 1974. Where is the outrage? Morocco occupies Western Sahara since 1975. Where is the outrage? China occupies Tibet and commits actual genocide against Uyghurs. Where is the outrage? Russia invades Ukraine, annexes Crimea. Temporary outrage, then business as usual. But Israel? Israel considers applying sovereignty to land it's controlled since 1967. Land with deep Jewish historical ties, land it captured in a defensive war. And the world loses its mind. That's not about international law. That's about Israel. The debate over the West Bank and Gaza isn't happening in a vacuum. It's happening after 76 years of rejected peace offers, after decades of terrorism, after multiple wars, after withdrawal from Gaza turned into a disaster. The legal status of these territories is disputed, not settled. The history is complicated, not simple, and the responsibility for the current situation doesn't rest solely or even primarily with Israel. If annexation is boring, fine, let's talk about it. But let's talk honestly. Let's acknowledge that Israel has tried land for peace and got rockets in return. Let's acknowledge that the two-state solution requires two sides willing to make peace, and one side has refused for 76 years. And let's stop pretending that Israel being stronger than Palestinians make Israel wrong. Strength doesn't equal guilt, and weakness doesn't equal righteousness. The fact that the world sees Israel as Goliath and Palestinians as David doesn't change the fact that David keeps firing rockets and rejecting peace. Maybe it's time to stop basing policy on fairy tales and start dealing with reality. I'm Miguel, and this was Middle East in less than 5 minutes. Until next time, Shalom.